Amazon Game Studios have just announced that they're taking their game all the way back into alpha testing. Now, with that knowledge, I thought it would be in everyone's best interest that I go ahead and create an all-encompassing everything you need to know about New World going into 2021 video. I did a video featuring my first impressions of the game during the preview event that both Mrs Stix and I managed to get into and play a few months ago. After playing for several days, I, along with many other players, were of the opinion that the game needed a lot more content, a lot more variety if it was to compete with any of the other premium titles dominating the market right now. Now, you guys are gonna want to take a little bit here to sit back, and I urge you to watch this until the very end, as it will cover pretty much every question you might have, and trust me, there is a lot of info here. Before that though, don't forget that we stream MMOs over on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/MMOBite every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday at 3 p.m. EST. We'll also be streaming New World over there, so make sure to come by and follow. New World is a brand new upcoming open world MMO set on the fictional island of Eternum during the 17th century. It features various survival mechanics, but for the most part, a large number of those survival elements were actually removed, with the game moving more towards traditional MMO features. The game features action combat and has a 3D graphical style. I know a lot of people wanted New World to be a free-to-play MMO, but unfortunately, it seems as though Amazon Game Studios is determined to release the game as a premium title, requiring a one-time purchase that varies in price depending on the package. It is currently unconfirmed whether or not the game will feature paid expansions like Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2, or rather if the studio will instead focus on regular free content updates. Considering the game will utilize a buy-to-play business model, it would stand to reason paid expansions are definitely likely. Otherwise, realistically, what kind of source of income would they have outside of the initial influx of sales? According to the studio, there will in fact be a cash shop present within the game. However, they claim that it will not have any items that promote pay to win. Currently, cosmetic items and furniture plan to be added with a fully functional housing system present in the final version of the game. Now, I know that cash shops are definitely concerning by default. Just because a developer claims that they will not insert a certain type of item doesn't mean that at a later date they won't go back on their word. The devs went on to reveal that they want a level of fashion war to be present at endgame, kind of how Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2 have a large focus on outfits, so that's promising. Currently, they stated that they're not interested in adding mounts into the game, but they noted that if enough players want the feature introduced, they might be willing to go ahead and add it. If that does happen, they might end up selling various types of premium mounts within the cash shop as well, but that's all just speculation. Honestly, when I played during the preview, the combat was pretty basic. Actually, no, it was very basic. It was slow, it felt clunky, and it wasn't at all enjoyable for me, mainly due to your abilities sharing cooldowns between weapons. And what I mean by this is, you have 3 different types of weapons that you can equip at any given time. You also possess various skill trees to invest into to develop your character. You're able to select 3 different skills at any given time per weapon, totaling 9 different unique abilities, but can only use 3 abilities per weapon equipped. Now, during the preview, each weapon ability shared cooldowns across each weapon type, meaning that if I, as an example here, click Q on my sword and then swap to my bow, the Q ability on my bow would also be on cooldown. This, to me and to a lot of players, made absolutely no sense. I mean, there are other games that utilize weapon swapping, and none of them have this in place. This is a terrible feature to have. Thankfully, they took note of this, and as of their most recent update on October 20th, it turns out that they are making alterations to the current system, with each weapon now having their own independent cooldowns, allowing for the swapping of weapons without restriction of abilities. The combat itself was not bad. It was definitely very slow, much more so than I had actually expected it to be, but it required more calculated movements and choices. This is something that I'm not really used to, and I know a lot of people aren't really used to either, especially after playing games like Black Desert and Blade and Soul. No, there are no classes available, not in the traditional sense at least. You can obtain experience and level up just as you would in any MMO. You also gain attribute points and skill points that you can distribute between a selection of different abilities and statistics. These function in essence as your class, but provide you with a lot of individual identity, allowing for you to really just craft something that fits the type of class you want to play. As an example, There are strength, dexterity, intelligence, focus, and constitution stats that you can distribute points between. Each one obviously affects a different aspect of your character: mana regeneration, total HP, overall weapon damage with various different weapons. Now, this allows for you to essentially take a certain path. If you pump everything into strength or constitution, you'll probably find quite a large benefit from heavy armor and large two-handed weapons or one-handed weapons and a shield. Depending on what you choose, what armor you choose, whether you opt for a shield, your entire skill set will change, allowing for so much creative freedom over your character, something you really don't see much anymore. But at the same time, there are no doubt going to still be those cookie cutter builds that everyone opts to use anyway, because let's be real here, they are just going to be so much better than pretty much anything you could come up with on your own. And you know, no offense to you guys, I feel the same way. Like, I do the same thing. It just, I don't know, to me, you have all of these options, but they just go ahead and, I don't know, like, remove the need for personal customization, personal experimentation. Honestly, I would like to say yes, but if you have ever played a Western RPG, then for the most part, you've likely grown accustomed to the limitations that are imposed on character creation. There were some face types, there were some hairstyles, some facial hair options, and a couple different skin tones. But other than that, for the most part, you're going to look pretty much like every other character running around. You didn't have any options to customize your eye shape, your nose shape, your lips, your brows, your body size, your body shape, anything. I know customizations are important to an MMO, and I feel like this will really stifle any type of creative freedom players might have had or wanted. Of course, this might change over the course of the current alpha test, so there's no guarantee that they won't improve on or expand on the available options. The graphics, if we disregard the character models themselves, as they kind of, to me, look like something out of a 2008 RPG, actually do look great. The world is bright, the world is vibrant, it's filled with life. The world is completely open, there are no segregated zones at all. The world is not split between loading screens. I was surprised to see this, as MMOs these days make heavy use of zone segregation, having large areas filled with content, but small loading screens connecting them to one another. Typically, this hasn't bothered me at all. A small loading screen isn't really enough to turn me off of a game, nor is it enough to really disconnect me from the world and actively enjoying what it has to offer. But I'm happy to see that more MMOs still care about that seamless open world experience. I only played for maybe 15, maybe 20 hours total, and I didn't see much in the way of diversity with regards to actual environments. There were plenty of forests, there were rivers, farmland, mountains. I hadn't had the opportunity to see if there were more or other biome types, but I can only hope. Abilities at times looked and felt a little clunky, as the combat itself, but more specifically the close range swings and range projectile skills. Currently, New World is going to be a PC exclusive. The game will be available to pre-order via both Amazon itself and Steam. The devs have confirmed that they have absolutely no interest of porting the game over to any type of console in the future, and would like to keep this exclusively on the PC. Which is honestly a shame, as I feel like an MMO like this would have been perfect for consoles, and having crossplay functionality between PCs and consoles is a huge missed opportunity. PvP was the main attraction for New World originally when it was planned to be a survival game. With the ridiculous overhaul, the revamp and rework, PvP became much less of a focus, but it still retains a certain level of importance to the game. Players can now entirely opt out of PvP, meaning that you can completely ignore the feature altogether. PvP requires a certain level to participate, level 10 specifically, and for you to be a part of a faction. The criminal system that was originally in place has since been removed, and players no longer drop items when they die, removing the full loot aspect of the game. They also have absolutely no plans on full PvP servers anymore. One type of PvP is the open world PvP, which takes a form of faction missions, or at least during the preview that was the case. Players would go to a specific location while having PvP flagged and would attempt to participate in and then complete the mission. There are plenty of PvE elements that comprise the game. Let's start off with the player housing. Players can purchase houses and decorate them. These can be purchased beginning at level 20. Houses are only, however, purchasable within settlements. Settlements are a part of the territory system present within the game, with territories being capable of being taken over by companies, which are essentially New World's version of the guild system. Players can then govern them, setting taxes, providing crafting stations, and most importantly, fortifying them in the case of invasions. Invasions take two separate forms. You have player invasions, which are large-scale 50 versus 50 siege battles between companies, which is, I guess, a form of PvP, so maybe this part in specific should have been the PvP section, but I digress. Then you have NPC invasions, which allow for up to 50 players to sign up and participate in a large-scale invasion of corrupted enemies lasting 8 waves. There are no planned dungeons or raids. Yeah, this is a core MMO mechanic that is completely removed from the game, much like Black Desert did. I know that this is going to upset a lot of people, but hey, Blue Protocol is going to offer dungeons and raids if you are looking for something competitive in terms of PvE content. We have corrupted breaches spawn around the world that allow players to group up and tackle waves of enemies with the goal of sealing the breach and returning the land to normal. Then there are factions. Players have to choose a faction, and in doing so will open up quests specific to that faction. Joining a faction is permanent, and as such you'll only be capable of joining a company of the corresponding faction that you choose. Taking on faction quests aids your faction's overall influence of the territory, and quests themselves differ between PvE or PvP as to not limit content for any single type of player. Now, if you know Mrs Stix and I, you know for a fact that we absolutely loathe crafting in our games. Honestly, to me, like, I would prefer other people to go out and get the materials and then spend the time leveling their crafting professions while I'm out there participating in the game, earning money, and then I just subsequently go and pay them to craft the stuff for me. So, seeing how important, how focal of a point crafting is in this game, definitely, I don't know, maybe just a little bit kills me inside. But yeah, there is definitely crafting present. Crafting comes in various forms and requires a variety of materials. You can gather utilizing mining, skinning, logging, and harvesting. You can refine using smelting, stone cutting, woodworking, leatherworking, and weaving. And finally, you can craft using weaponsmithing, armoring, jewel crafting, engineering, arcana, cooking, and furnishing. When gathering materials to craft, you can find special items that actually improve the items that you craft. And crafted items actually have not only different tiers, but also different qualities that influence the item's gear score and overall statistics. Crafting is pretty extensive and is definitely rewarding if you decide to dedicate enough time to it. As of October 20th, 2020, New World has returned back to its alpha status, with the developers claiming they're making extensive alterations to different aspects of the game and attempting to introduce plenty of new content. As such, they're sending out random invites for players to participate in the revamped content. However, the entire alpha is back to being under an NDA. What this means is that we can't stream, or we can't record, we can't take pictures of, and we can't even discuss what we experience until they say we can. As for the closed beta, it was originally scheduled for April 2020, but after repeated, quite extensive delays, the closed beta has been delayed to spring 2021. Interestingly, the closed beta begins in spring 2021, and the official release of the game also comes at the same time. So not only are we going to be able to test the game come spring, but if there are issues present, then too bad, I guess? Or at the very least, you'll have a very small window of opportunity to go about fixing those. Now, while they do claim that the game will fully launch in spring 2021, with the sheer number of delays the game has suffered thus far, I would not say that it is out of the question for the game to ultimately end up delayed again to a later date in 2021 or 2022. But I mean, that's just me. Remember, New World was supposed to launch May 26, 2020. Amazon Game Studios have not confirmed which, if any, regions will not have access to the upcoming MMO. As it stands, it's safe to assume if you could play Crucible, then you'll be able to play New World as well, but considering the money Amazon has, I wouldn't expect the game to be unavailable anywhere that wouldn't already be difficult to launch. But then again, we don't know any kinds of specifics until we get closer to the release that is coming this spring. I know this is an important question. Can my PC run New World? Currently, we have both the minimum and recommended specs required to run the game, and honestly, considering the recommended settings are a GTX 970, I wouldn't really imagine they're going to be all that bad. And that is pretty much everything I can think of. All of the questions that I have seen asked and all of the topics I think need covered. New World is one of the hottest upcoming MMOs, being one of the most anticipated titles in years and could potentially be the biggest online release of 2021. Amazon Game Studios have had absolutely no success with any of their games thus far, but that could potentially change if New World ends up being a huge hit. They currently have both Lost Ark Arc and a brand new upcoming Lord of the Rings MMO scheduled, but New World is going to be the very first MMO for the studio. Now, I think the future of the studio definitely heavily depends on the success of the New World game, but at the same time, from what I've personally seen and experienced from the preview event, it still has a long way to go and not as much time as they might actually need to make adequate changes to the game. But this is my opinion, my impressions of the state the game is in right now. What do you guys think though? Are you still looking forward to New World? Let me know down in the comments below and let's talk about it. Anyway guys, that is it for me. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this and I'll see you guys next time.
Peace.